Lighting is the most important aspect of a render. You've heard me say that phrase a few times so far, and I just want to prove it to you that learning the foundational skill of lighting can translate to whatever application, or if you end up doing studio photography in real life, learning the foundational concepts and methods used in lighting can translate to anything. And when you learn lighting, you have a superpower that you can bring to whatever application you use, whether that be Blender, Unreal Engine, Spline, After Effects, Substance. All of these different applications use lights. So when you know how to use lights to tell stories, to set moods, you have a superpower. So I'm going to show you that no matter what kind of software you're using, a light is a light, and they all behave very similarly. So as long as you're bringing your skills, your lighting skills, to that application, you can use that light to create whatever kind of story or composition that you want. So to prove that to you, let's jump into Blender here. Did you know it's free? And we are going to open up this school motion controller here. So we got the SOM box here, and it's got all the textures. Not all the textures kind of came through, but I just want to prove a point here. Now, for those of you out there who are unfamiliar with Blender, I mean, to be honest, I'm even unfamiliar with Blender myself. I just want to give you some of the top shortcut keys that you should learn that kind of mimic what you can do in Cinema 4D. So I taught you the 1, 2, and 3 keys in clicking and dragging. Those are the navigation hotkeys in Cinema 4D, but in Blender, they're slightly different. If you want to pan, that is going to be Shift, middle mouse click, and drag. That's going to be your pan. So Shift, middle mouse click, and drag. You are going to be able to orbit by just using the middle mouse button. So middle mouse button is big with the navigation keys here. And then to dolly, you are going to hit the Command or Control key, and you are going to middle mouse button. So Shift, pan, middle mouse button, orbit, and then Command or Control will zoom. It's a little bit harder than just the 1, 2, and 3 keys, I'll be honest, but it's not too bad to be able to get kind of moving and grooving inside of Blender using your view settings here. Now, if you want to create a camera and a light, the shortcut key for that will be Shift and then A, and this will bring up your Add menu. So let's go and add a camera first. Now, typically when you add a new scene, you create a new scene, it already has a camera in it already, but you can kind of see there is the camera. There's my little gizmo button there. And so if you want to actually look through the camera, it's a little bit different than what you're used to in Cinema 4D. If you want to look through the camera view, what you're going to do is go to View, and you are going to want to click on this Camera to View. Now, even when you have this Camera to View option turned on, I believe by default it's turned off, you're still not looking through your camera view. And in Cinema 4D, it's very easy to kind of look through your camera, but in Blender, there's a different method. And the shortcut key, Blender is very shortcut key heavy, is number pad 0. So the 0 key on your number pad, that will then bring up your camera view, okay? And so we can just zoom out here by holding the Command or Control key and middle mouse clicking and dragging to kind of reframe our view. We can go to our camera options here, and let's see if we can go into the settings, and you can see here are the focal length settings. So just like the focal length settings in Cinema 4D, we can change this to a flatter, longer lens and go to 100mm and just zoom that out and recompose this shot. Another thing you will want to do is this menu right here, this little icon here is your kind of output settings. And you can see that we got this little view here that is kind of like our render boundary view. And you can go ahead and turn on a render region. And this is on by default too. And I find this very confusing because if I go and I want to do that preview render in my viewport view, you can go into your interactive preview render in Redshift, you can do that by going to this little button there. And this is actually going to turn on the preview render. And you can see that with this render region turned on, it's kind of cropping our view here. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that, and that will allow us to see our full view of our camera. So this will be our full render view here. And then another thing you want to do is go and you can see that the render view is kind of cropped in here. So if you want to maximize the render view here, what we can do is go to View, Cameras, and then go to frame camera bounds. So the shortcut key for that is the home key. And you can see that's going to kind of maximize that render view here. And so we got this constantly rendering view here. You can see I went accidentally to my top view here, but I'll just kind of rearrange this around. And if you ever get and fall out of your camera view here, just hit the number pad 0 key, and that'll bring you back to your camera view, because I'm still rusty with Blender. And it's actually a good thing to show you, is that you can kind of not know how to use an app and know how to light in it. So I'm just kind of fumbling around in here to kind of prove to you that I don't know what the heck I'm doing in Blender very much, but I do know enough that I know how to create a light. Okay, so let's add a light. I'm getting dizzy with all my trying to build that muscle memory with Blender like I have it for Cinema 4D, and it's very confusing. So if you want to add a light, you're going to go back to the Shift A menu to add, and then go down to light, and look at that. Blender and many other 3D applications, whether it's Unreal or whatever it is, has the same kind of light setups. Has the same kind of lights. So you got a point light, a sunlight, which is more like your redshift sun and skylight, spotlight, and an area light. And we've been using area lights this whole entire time, so let's add an area light. And you can see that show up right there. We got this little navigation gizmo. We can go and rotate this, and you can see the direction in which the light is pointing to. It's got that little yellow dot, so we can aim that at our camera, move this on back. We can even scale this up to get a bigger light there. And so you can see, if we know how to light, we want to create some like Rembrandt lighting or something like that, and kind of angle our light at 45 degrees, and we can get out of our camera view by hitting number pad 0, and we can kind of just navigate around here and position this light away and shrink this down. And then when we have this light selected, we can go into the object properties here, which is right about here. You can see here is the different transform options and stuff like that. But if you want to actually change the light option, that is going to be in this little light menu. And so a lot of these settings will be very familiar to you. You have your watt, which is just the power. And again, you're just kind of seeing from this above view. So you can create multiple views in Blender like you can in Cinema 4D. So to do that, you can bring up the 4-up view by hitting Command or Control and then Alter Option and Q. And this will bring up your 4-up view. And there you go. You can see our 4-up view. And I can be in this view and hit the 0 key to get back into my camera view. And so now, if I just kind of dolly in here, like so, you can see that in my other views, I can kind of adjust this light, okay? And so just like before in Cinema 4D, I can adjust everything in here, adjust where the light is pointing, again, by grabbing that little yellow dot there, and kind of adjust this as I want to. And so you can bring all those different lighting concepts. I can Command and Control C, Command and Control V to duplicate that area light. And I can kind of bring this over to this other side here and have this angled at 45 degrees. If you ever want to bring up your gizmo, it's going to be in this little menu here. So there's your gizmo, there's your scale, your move, your rotate. But I like to use the gizmo because it reminds me of Cinema 4D's kind of gizmo, where you can rotate and scale all in the same kind of tool there. And so you can adjust the lighting here. You can change the color of that light like so. Maybe a little blue. And then this area light, we can double click to rename this to key light. So again, the key light's going to be the strongest light in that setup. And this can be the fill, and then Command and Control C, Command and Control V, and do a little rim light. So we can move this light behind and rotate this around. Just kind of position this as a nice rim light here. Move this down. Here's my side view here. So you can see right orthographic, front orthographic, top. So just like in Cinema 4D. And we can kind of just adjust this to be a bigger light. And One thing that's a little difficult is with this gizmo, it's like I wanted to get that scale and sometimes I'm hitting the rotate. So this gizmo is nice, but sometimes you got to make sure you're actually selecting the right thing. So we got this nice kind of rim light back here. It's fairly small, so let's make it a little bit bigger. There we go. It's got this nice bright rim light here. As you can see, that's our render view. And so I'm fumbling around in here, but hopefully you get the point. Is I'm fumbling around in Blender. I don't really know Blender that well, but I can still light. And as long as I know, like if you have a go-to lighting setup, you can recreate those lighting setups in Cinema 4D as well. So it's very, very important to get comfortable with lighting concepts and really building up your eye for lighting and knowing how to use lights for setting different moods and creating different vibes and getting different emotions from viewers, because you can translate all those skills to no matter what kind of application you are using. So if you want to go back and let's do the Command and Control and then Alt or Option and then Q. Again, there's so many shortcut keys to remember. I'm lucky I kind of wrote them down here. That's going to get up to your single view again. I just wanted to show you one more little trick here. And that is if you wanted to create a whole new view. So if you wanted to have a side-by-side view, what I'm going to do is go into this bottom corner and I'm just going to click my mouse and drag, and that will create a whole new view here. And you can set this to whatever view you want. So if you want it to be your top view, just hit the Z there and that will be your above view. If you wanted a side view, you can hit X and kind of frame that up. And so that's your side view. And then Y, that'll be your back view. So if I just wanted to see this from above, I'll just hit the Z there in the little gizmo over here and kind of zoom out. And there you can see there's my light that I selected. I'm just repositioning this. And then of course I can reposition my view here. There we go. And looking pretty good. Okay, so there's another thing here where if you click on this little drop down, you can kind of uncheck this scene world. You actually bring in an HDRI, and I covered HDRIs in a bonus video, so definitely check that out. But you can see you can adjust the strength there. So there's these nice built-in HDRIs you can use. Again, I always recommend that when you use an HDRI, you just do it as like a nice little environment fill and stuff like that. But I'll just turn on the scene world for now. But just to let you know that even the concept of HDRIs apply to whatever application you are using. So I would say I didn't spend a lot of time on this lighting setup, but if you wanted to go ahead and render this, hopefully you got the whole concept that lights are lights, area lights are just like area lights in any other application. You can even see they have a spread here as well. So just so much can translate from one app to the other. So this is like your spread in Cinema 4D lights, or if you really want to shrink that light and kind of get the barn doors effect, you can do that here. Size, the shape, change it to a disc, whatever you want to do, you can do that there. And you can even use a spotlight or whatever you want. So if you want to render this, you're going to go up to render and then just go to render image or hit F12. Again, everything's very shortcut heavy. And you can see, voila, there is our little rendered school of motion controller. So that's Blender. Let's show and let me demonstrate to you how, again, lights are lights. And as long as you know how to use them, you can use them whatever application. I'm going to actually bring you to the world of Spline 3D, which is a web-based 3D application that is super cool. I'm seeing it being used a lot these days. And let's see how lights work over in Spline. All right, so here is Spline. The website for it is spline.design, and it's pretty incredible what you can accomplish in your web browser. Really great looking 3D. Spline is used a lot with web design. Web designers will use Spline to create little interactions and mouse over events and stuff like that. So you're not really using this for animation or any motion graphics kind of things. But again, you can translate your 3D knowledge, your lighting knowledge, and bring it over into Spline. If you have a client that wants you to design a website with some 3D interactions, hey, you can do it, right? So what you're going to do is you're just going to log in, create an account if you don't have one. And you can see I already have an account here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into this little scene that I made that is a nice little robot that I called Hugbot. I don't know why. but this is just going to load up, and you can see, voila, we have a 3D scene in here. And so the navigation inside of Spline is kind of similar to Blender, where it's a lot of middle mouse button clicks and stuff like that. So to pan, you're just going to middle mouse button, and that's going to be your pan. To orbit, you're going to do Command and Control, and then middle mouse button. And then to zoom, it's actually going to be your mouse scroll wheel. So I don't actually have a mouse, I got my Wacom pen. So it's actually on my Wacom touch control here, I can kind of pinch in and out, and that is your zoom. And I believe you can do Command and Control and plus and minus to kind of zoom in and out. So like so. And so we got this scene. It's unlit, it just has ambient light. Got your object manager over here, got some of your settings over here. So my lights, you can see there's ambient light here, and you can control the intensity of that ambient light. So this is almost like adding a dome light to your scene, just gonna create some nice ambient light. But if you wanna create a area light, you're gonna go to this plus menu right here, and this is where you can create all your different type of objects. So you can do text, paths. If you go all the way down, see there's a camera. You can also see there is a point light, directional light, and spotlight. So there are no area lights in Spline, but a directional light is kind of similar. Point light is very similar as well. So let's just go and add a point light here. You can see it just got created right there. And so we can move this around. And so we can move this wherever we want. Position this forward again, because we know that 45-degree angle for a Rembrandt light is pretty nice. And so with that light selected, same kind of settings. We got the intensity here. We got the decay, which is like how far does this light actually fall off and decay before it hits the object. Shadows, yes or no. And the color, so same kind of stuff. So I can go in here, and if I know lighting concepts like the 70-30 rule and stuff like that, I can come in here and light stuff pretty nicely, okay? So just yet another example of how, if you know how to use lights in one 3D application, you can translate that superhero knowledge, that superhero lighting knowledge, to whatever app you want. So if you are going to double down on any skill, and say you already know animation, because let me tell you, animation, yet another superpower that you can translate from application to application, because just like I said, a light is a light, keyframe's a keyframe, right? 3D lights, composition, design, it's everything. Those are all the superpowers that if you know them, you can go to any app that you possibly want. And especially when we live in an age where there's a new application to keep up with or a new update you need to keep up with. If you know these foundational skills, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how those applications change, because good lighting is good lighting. Good lighting is never going to change. Good animation, never going to change. Good design, never going to change. Okay. So hopefully this little video here has kind of demonstrated what the important things you should be focusing on in not only your 3D career, but your artistic career. I hope that's kind of shined a light on all of those different things you should be focusing on. All right. I'll see you in the next video.